What is there to know about shock and spring maintenance? I mean, they're pretty much maintenance free, right? Welcome back to our race car maintenance series. Today we're going to talk a little bit about shock and spring maintenance. First thing you want to do when you unload the car is you're going to want to wash it good. You're going to want to make sure that you get the shocks, get all the dirt and mud off of them, make sure they're nice and clean. Cue promotional. And we're back. So now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take the shock off the car. Doesn't matter if it's a coilover or non-coilover shock. The coilovers, we're going to disassemble the springs on them. This is a left front. For some odd reason, the spring cups always seem to take a little bit more wear and tear on the left front. You're going to want to keep an eye on that, mostly on a disassembly standpoint. Make sure that our grooves aren't getting all galled up or nothing, so that we can take them apart. So we're going to take our springs off and our take-up spring. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to visually inspect the shaft. If it's got any dings in it, every time it comes out, it's going to pull oil out and make an oil mess on all of this. But the big problem is when it goes in, it's going to take any dirt that's in that divot and it's going to put it in the oil. It's going to contaminate the oil, and it's just going to shorten the life of the pistons and shims. So if you have any big dings, rock chips, anything like that, bends in the shaft, you're going to want to send your shock to your shock guy, have him go over it, put a new shaft in it. So the first thing I do is I take a good rag and I wipe everything down, the body, the shaft, what holds the cup, and then I come to the eyes and I turn the eyes and I clean them really good. Make sure there's no dirt, foreign material on them, the top and the bottom one. And then when we put them back in the car, we put a little bit of oil on here just to keep them all freed up. The least amount of friction we can have, the better. You're gonna want to check this eye up here. If it's starting to get bent, or if where the heim goes in, it's starting to get oblonged, you're gonna want to talk to your shock builder about that. Sometimes when you get in a jingle or a wreck or anything like that, you'll see that this eye up here will start to tweak a little bit. That's never a good thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I check all these screws up here. I make sure this is tight. I make sure the screw on the can is tight. I usually back my screw out on my lock collar and oil them occasionally. It depends on how much I adjust it. This left front, I don't seem to adjust as much as some of the other shocks. But you want to make sure you keep that freed up. And then that Allen screw actually has a nylon tip on it. I'll take that Allen screw out, make sure that the tip's good to make sure we're not ruining the body of the shock. The next thing I do on a weekly basis is I'll actually close this off. I'll just take it all the way to my zero. On our shocks, when we have them dynoed and gone through, they put on the shock. We just have a label on here what our base settings are between the shaft and the can. So after I do that, I'll take him back out to where he needs to be. And I'm just ensuring that the piston or the jet is moving inside of here and that this isn't bound up. Here's actually one that's bound up. I don't know if you can see in the picture, but this eye is actually bent. This was off of a shock. It was in a wreck and actually had bent this and it doesn't turn. It's stuck. So then the next thing I do is I come to the can, make sure the can's all clean. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually go to the nitrogen bottle and I'll check, make sure my pressure, it's another piece of information that's always on our labels, is how much pressure is supposed to be in this can. I'll go over, make sure that's the pressure that we have. Just kind of some upkeep on the shocks. It doesn't take very long, but in the long run it helps, especially if you're going to send a shock in. Never send a dirty shock. If you got to pay somebody to clean it, it's never a good thing. Just clean it before you send them if you're going to send a shock in. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my take-up spring on this left front, make sure that there's no cracks, nothing like that. My separator, make sure that there's no like gall marks or nothing from where it had bombed out or anything like that. So now onto the spring side of it. The one thing that I do from time to time is I'll take a spring. So this is a 10-inch spring, and I'll actually take a tape measure and I'll measure it to verify that it is still a 10-inch spring. Now let's say it was 10 1/4 or 9 3/4. I know that this spring is either being stretched or compressed. And then whenever you stretch or compress a spring and it stays there, it's going to change your rate. And the rate's such a big deal on these springs. That's why I tend to go with the Landrum springs. This is not affiliated with them by any means, but if they want to send me some springs, I'd take them. The nice part about the Landrum springs is they come with this sheet, and what it is a dyno sheet. This spring is supposed to be a 525. They dynoed it. The average rate is a 526, so it's within a pound of what I had ordered. So the budget guys, these springs are not really any more expensive than say like your iBox or Hypercoils, True Coils, anything like that. But they come with that dyno sheet, so you know out of the box what you have, you know, because they're guaranteed within a certain percentage. Well, within that percentage, they tell you exactly what it is. So going back together, I'm actually going to put this new spring on here just as a demonstration purpose. So we're going to go back together with it. We just stack our spring back on just how it came off. I'm actually going to switch cups on this one. That one's getting pretty worn out. It's got a lot of dings and wear on it. There's a few gall marks on it. So I'm going to put this cup on here and put my lock ring back on. And it's back together. So let's actually go over to the smash machine, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the spring rate. I'm going to take out this take-up spring just for demonstration purposes, so we can talk about the spring rate and what you need to be checking on a maintenance standpoint. Let's go over there. So we're over here at the smash machine. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just verify spring rate. I've gone and I've run the spring up. Just put just a little bit of pressure on it. I'd say it's at 35 pounds. Just kind of takes the slack up on the spring. Next thing I do is I'm going to zero my wheel load, and I'm going to run it up 1 inch. Okay, I've ran it up 1 inch, and these things are a little touchy, so to get it on the first shot's pretty good. So our spring rate is a 526. So what they said on the paper is what it is. So now the next thing that we do with this thing, after we like verify our spring rate, we're gonna come back down. So we're off the spring now. So let's say our center to center is 15 inches on this. So what we do is we run this up to 15 inches. And so now our center to center is 15 inches. Let's just say that we have a 15-inch ride height. So now my smash number on this is a 739. Now what I do is I take that and I'll write that down. That was a 739. Let's just say that this is the first setup on this spring. Now every week I'll come over here with this shock and I'll put it to my 15-inch center to center number and I'll look at it. If it's 739 plus or minus about 5 pounds, you know, I know everything's good. Now if it's 15, 20 pounds different, I know that I have an issue with the spring. A lot of times I'll switch out the spring. Let's say I get another identical spring to this, put it in here. A lot of times I'll get back to my 739. So if you're having any handling issues, it just feels like maybe the car is getting too on the right rear, or the droop load doesn't quite feel like it used to. a lot of times look at the spring. That'll be the first thing I look at, especially like when we're talking with like a lighter spring. They seem to lose rate a little bit faster than these bigger springs, especially if you're bombing them out a lot or putting a lot of load in them. They just seem like the more energy you put in them, the faster they can get out of rate. So if you're having issues, handling issues, come over the Smasher, put it in there, and verify your numbers. Because if your numbers don't line up, a lot of times that's your issue. Get the spring put in. That is the maintenance part of your spring. You just need to make sure that you're staying within rate and that your settings are staying correct. You got to make sure that your screw's staying tight up here. It's not backing out, anything like that. And that's why it's nice to write things down. If you change this at the track, say you take one turn out, one turn in, whatever it is, you need to check your numbers and see where you're at now and put it back to where it was and verify that that change made what you wanted to. If you were looking for, say, 50 pounds more wheel load, is that what that change did? It might have been good. It might have been a great change. You might have won that night, but you need to know what it did. So you can duplicate it week in and week out if the track conditions are the same. So let's go back to the table. We'll discuss a few more things. So this has been an overview of your spring and shock maintenance. This is something I feel like you need to do every week. It helps maintain your settings. And anytime you can maintain settings, you can be more consistent on your setups, and you'll always know what you got when you go to the track. If you guys are finding value in this, please click the subscribe button. I plan on doing quite a few more of these videos as I redo my car. You guys have a good day. Races are won in the shop.